Good evening, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is disambiguating actual impropriety from innocence, innocent activity, that is. So I hear a lot of stuff talked about online, in particular lately, about the Epstein files and messing around with people who are underage, and I've heard terms like child erotica, and I'm thinking a lot of these people are the kind of people, the people who are complaining, I should say, are the kind of people who rush to judgment. And let me explain what I mean by that. Something doesn't happen until it happens, and something actually has to happen for it to have happened. And maybe that's not obvious. I mean, people are saying that existing in a certain area, or just witnessing a drawing or a photograph is perhaps improper somehow. Okay, so you're going to start judging people for thought crimes next? I mean, how are we even defining impropriety at this point? So for me, it's very simple. I just want to get to the point, and that is, impropriety is something that injures somebody. It's actually measurable. It has happened. It is something that has either been prepared to do or actually did happen. So these are crimes by definition. There has to be a non-consensual measurable damage. Not something that almost happened, not something that somebody mistook for happening but didn't, not something that wasn't even improper but did happen. If it was proper and everything's fine and it was consensual and it meets all of the required criteria to be proper, there's no more discussion about it. So I want to talk about a couple of specific examples. I'm hearing people say things like, so-and-so is a pedophile because they were seen messing around with such and such, or with so-and-so. And okay, there's an ambiguous term here, messing around. What exactly is meant? I mean, I can infer the meaning. I'm not stupid, and I think what it means, but there's a hazard here. The ambiguity represents a huge hazard, especially when it's a serious charge. It's good to be specific, and it's also good to know, like I just said, what constitutes impropriety specifically. So again, I want to say this one more time. A crime, any crime, including and especially crimes relating to minors, are defined by non-consensual damage that has actually happened. And that includes preparing to do a crime, if that's what has happened. And non-consensual isn't ambiguous either. There's perhaps some confusion about what consent is. Consent can be thought of, a very helpful way to think about consent is to regard it as a 5-part device. Hear me out. I don't want to bore you, but this is very important. Consent is a 5-part device. The first part is wherewithal. And it's so simple you can commit it to memory, just like I have. Wherewithal means you understand the proposal and its central effects. That means not just the proposal, but the effects that it's going to have moving forward. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but indefinitely moving forward. So it requires a level of maturity where a person is capable of understanding what is being proposed. Okay, that's probably the biggest part. Second part, the second part of the consent is consciousness. So just because someone is able to consent, it can't be assumed that they have consented if they are unconscious, for example. Like if somebody's in a coma, it becomes improper to be romantic with a person in a coma. Hopefully that doesn't need to be explained. The third part is for written consent, that is contracts and agreements that are written down or printed. And that is digestible. It has to be brief enough so that the average person without special training can understand it and read it very easily. This is to mitigate abuse with lately, you see these huge contracts, hundreds of pages, hundreds or thousands of pages if it's like a government contract, and it's designed to bury stuff that's hidden inside, and that's clearly an abuse. It should be clear that that is not okay, to fill a contract with garbage just to hide stuff. That's not okay. So it has to be very digestible, like measurably, and by a judge, if necessary, digestible, or else it's null and void. The fourth part, getting through it, the fourth part is the consent itself. And while this may seem redundant or obvious, it's not, because what is valid as far as consent goes, it can be express. That is, I say it or write it down. It can be implied, as in I am willing and I extend it, but not expressly. Or it can be retroactive. That's the third part. It can actually be retroactive. That is, maybe I haven't even really fully explored the idea, but if at some future inquiry I decide, yes, of course, I was 100% in favor of it, and then moving forward, I continue to maintain that position, that is valid consent. Conversely, if somebody is compelled to consent, that is incentivized or coerced or taken advantage of, such as in the case with a minor, some certain minors who have not reached a level of maturity, and at which point they change their mind in the future. Now, here's where it gets real interesting. So if a minor changes their mind in the future about whether or not they were consensual about something that may have happened, it doesn't matter what happened. If it was sexual in nature and the consent was shown to be absent or is revoked, special protection is invoked at that point. And these are the laws that people aren't entirely clear about. That is statutory rape laws, special sexual harassment charges pertaining to minors, and there's a whole category of these things. They are designed for protection in the event of damage that was not consensual, not aimed at every single romantic coupling that happens to happen with young people. Okay, now this is a point that people are not clear about. A 16-year-old is allowed to have sex with another 16-year-old. A 16-year-old is allowed to have sex, potentially, with whoever, as long as it's consensual. Now, this is the part people don't understand. This is the fact, not just now in this country, but in every country in the world and all throughout human history, unless there's a problem with the person and their consent. Special protection will be invoked, and the people who are charged will face the consequences, 100%. So the fifth part, I'm almost through the special consent. The fifth part is no group consent, no riders. What does that mean? What is no group consent? Well, it turns out there's another abuse, right? There is something called terms of service, and when it involves any kind of sexual activity, it is a common abuse, unfortunately, that people will say, because you joined a group, you are therefore obligated to do all the things that the other people who joined the group are obligated to do. And then they mix in some kind of incentive, right? So the perks of the membership may include something interesting or life-sustaining or whatever, and they say, oh, well, you're now obligated to do something sexual in addition to all that other stuff, to receive those things. It becomes a business transaction, and that's not okay. Proper consent, per the fifth part, is between individuals, only between individuals. So, no riders, that is, no extra stuff tacked on, going backwards with it. The fourth part is the consent itself. Third part is digestibility, that is brevity of written consent. Second part is consciousness. First part is wherewithal. So backwards and forwards, it's not that hard to remember these 5 steps, and I strongly urge you to write it down if you haven't. I've mentioned this in my other videos, that's why I say that. I believe that this is a really good framework moving forward to establish propriety in cases that the behavior of people has been questioned or investigated. So back to the original subject, and that is people overreacting and being ambiguous and generally acting uncivilized, not even really knowing what they're talking about, but feeling very strongly and protectively, as they probably should, about kids, but acting like a mob, acting like witch hunters. Okay, you're an animal at that point. You don't want to act that way because you're inviting that treatment on yourself. Okay, there's something called due process, and I'm going to wrap up this video just before 10 minutes. Due process is not rush into judgment. It is taking into consideration all of the relevant circumstances so that you can, a court, if necessary, can establish whether or not something was excusable, whether it was protected, whether there was damage with or without consent. I realize our courts are not doing everything that I just said at this time. I'm 100% sure it's not because I'm confused about how the courts operate. I'm 100% sure it's because the courts are confused about what justice is nowadays. They have replaced, as an aside, they have replaced due process with an attempt at automating it and saving money by writing down precedent, that is in the form of legal language, laws we call them, and instead of investigating circumstances which cost money and time, they say instead, if your behavior happens to fit any of these legal symbols, we just assume that you did something wrong. Whether it was good behavior, whether it was bad behavior, it makes no difference. And we're going to call it blind justice. We're going to say that it's fair, even though it's obviously only equally unfair to everybody. It is anti-justice, and this is going to wrap up with this last detail. It is anti-justice, what we're currently doing. And unfortunately, our system is on the way out. This current system, if you're familiar with it, if you've been to court, it's about to be reformed. Not because somebody wants it, but because it's advertising itself as justice, and it isn't. So whether it's me or someone else, or next week or 10 years from now, I'm 100% sure that a lie falls apart by definition, and it's based on a lie right now. So that's how I know. I hope everybody has a respectful day, a safe and happy day. Reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.